Now on CoastTV News.
New city commissioners in the nation's summer capital will show you the municipal election results. Rip current risk, what you need to know if you're enjoying the beach this weekend. A look at the leaderboards will break down the top catches of the competition during day 6 of the White Marlin Open.
And it's been a really nice Saturday evening. We are on our way to the 50s tonight on Delmarva, especially away from the coast. We'll talk about how long this unseasonably cool weather is going to stick around in my full forecast.
This is CoastTV News at 11.
Susan Stewart and Chris Galanti join the Rehoboth Beach Board of Commissioners. Good evening, I'm Emma Aiken. Welcome to CoastTV News at 11. We begin tonight with the election results in Rehoboth Beach. In a 3-candidate race for 2 open seats on the Rehoboth Beach Board of Commissioners, Susan Stewart and Chris Galanti will now join the team. Susan Stewart, a lawyer, is already on the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission and the Mixed Use and Stormwater Utility Task Forces. She's also a financial advisor with a major wealth management firm. Chris Galanti has no relation to the city and is a senior program and account manager overseeing complex government contracts. Now let's take a look at the election numbers. A total of 1,111 ballots were cast in the municipal election. 637 of those were in person at the Rehoboth Beach Convention Center and 474 by absentee. And this is important to note. Each voter was allowed to vote for up to 2 of the 3 candidates. Stewart received the highest number of votes with 849, followed by Galanti with 806. Jeffrey Good, the 3rd candidate in the race, received 314 votes. Stewart and Galanti will be sworn in during the Board of Commissioners meeting on September 19th. Lots of people are at the beach this weekend, but lifeguards are on high alert because rip currents are the #1 weather-related danger at the beach. The National Weather Service uses a 3-level warning system. Low risk means dangerous rip currents are unlikely. Medium risk means rip currents are possible. Today we were at high risk, and tomorrow through Monday will be a moderate risk. And high risk along the Sussex County beaches means dangerous rip currents are likely in the surf zone. Today fell under this level of caution from the Lewis Beach down to Fenwick Island for Delaware, and that same concern travels down to Ocean City and as far south as Assateague Island for today. And we're now taking a live look into Dover, and our first alert meteorologist, Chris Mastrobono, joins us. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Emma. Yes, good news on the coastal front. Tomorrow we will see moderate rip current risks from Lewis all the way down through South Bethany. Still want to use caution, still want to swim near those lifeguards, and keep an eye to their commands throughout the afternoon if you're heading on down. And we'll also see that moderate risk extending from Ocean City, Assateague Island, all the way down to the Chickatee, wave heights 2 to 3 feet. So the seas slowly beginning to relax themselves after quite a potent stretch of weather out to sea. Now, we had quite a hot end to July. We had a heat wave in the 90s, and we just really flipped the script. Look at that, 75 August 1st, and we have been well below average. In fact, some record-breaking coolness to start the month of October at some of our climate locations, including Salisbury. 73 degrees right now in Ocean City, 66-degree dew point, and you can see we are cooling down pretty nicely away from the coast. We're down to 59 Harrington, 61 in Laurel, so we are well on our way to seeing overnight lows in the mid-50s. And all thanks to high pressure virtually right over the peninsula, and we're going to see plenty of sunshine, maybe some patchy fog away from the coast to start tomorrow. Other than that, plenty of sunshine, just a picture-perfect day with highs in the lower 80s. And we're going to see a few more of those crisp, cool nights again tomorrow night, and then we're going to see a August delight for our Sunday, and then that heat, humidity makes a comeback by the middle part of next week. We'll talk more about that in the full 7-day forecast a little later on in the newscast. Emma.
Thank you, Chris. A big step forward for the Millsboro bypass. Eastbound 20 to southbound 113 is reopening, as well as Sheep Pen Road. On your screen now is a map of the project aimed at fixing traffic in downtown Millsboro. Here's footage of the bypass work yesterday. The full bypass is currently expected to reopen in late September. Delaware's General Assembly will hold a special session Tuesday to address the backlash over property taxes. The state's GOP says the recent reassessment raised average taxable home values nearly 400%. The biggest concern comes from the Newcastle County School District's recent moves in response to the tax bills. This session could address the residential tax burden tied to school funding after the first statewide reassessment in more than 40 years. And newly elected District 20 Representative Alana Berry will be sworn in ahead of that special session Tuesday. More on the uncertain future of the NASA Wallops Visitor Center in Accomack County. NASA Goddard says no decisions about facility closures have been made, but union leadership say that the initial communication to employees via email signifies a clear intent to close the visitor center on October 1st. Jeff Parks is a chair of Wallops Research Park Leadership Council. He says it's too early to panic about the center's future.
My experience being a federal contractor as well as a federal employee, that notices have to be sent out if there's a potential for funding to be cut off. That's not new. It happens very often. It may be new to our area. So I'm hopeful, and from what I've heard, that's where we are in the process here.
The union is calling for increased transparency from agency leadership as to why these sites are being considered for closure. That's in addition to an impact study, a public hearing, and congressional oversight. There is an estimated $7.3 million in prize money this year at the White Marlin Open. And in a moment, we're going to take a look at the leaderboard sponsored by Rudy Marine. But first, take a look at one of the people on that leaderboard today. That's right, basketball icon Michael Jordan made a slam dunk at the scales. His boat, named Catch 23, is currently in second place in the White Marlin category with a 71-pound catch. And staying in that White Marlin category, Bill Fisher of Ocean City is the lead of that group with a 72-pound White Marlin. Looking at the Blue Marlin category, a massive 929.5-pounder is still on top. It was brought in by the boat Barbara B. In the tuna category, Mama C brought in a 95-pounder. In second place, No Limit brought in a 92.5-pound fish. And in third, Don't Ask brought in a 61-pound tuna. And Barbara B is on the leaderboard again, but this time in the dolphin category with a 32.5-pound catch. Rochambeau in second with a 27-pound catch, and Sweet Freedom with a 26.5-pound catch. The tournament runs through tomorrow, and at this time, there are no qualifying fish for the wahoo and swordfish categories.
White Marlin Open leaderboard coverage is sponsored by RudyMarine.com, where family boating begins.
And the White Marlin Open has grown significantly over the past 5 decades, and one couple has been there nearly every step of the way. Sylvia and Jay Mueller are currently attending their 46th tournament. Each year, the couple makes the trip down from Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. Since 1974, they have only missed the tournament 6 times, and their experience has allowed them to develop a perfect system to ensure they get the best seats in the house.
Get up in the morning, we eat breakfast, we fool around the house a little bit, maybe go over to the swimming pool. She has to leave by 1:30 to get here by 2,
get this
so that
front
we can
line.
get a good spot.
See, this is all
And
bunch.
here we are until we can't stand anymore, and then we go home.
The Muellers have attended 19 straight tournaments in Ocean City, and they say they don't plan on breaking that streak anytime soon. Police in Atlanta are investigating a deadly shooting that happened outside the CDC headquarters Friday. Authorities now believe the gunman was possibly motivated by a hatred of vaccines. One officer was killed in the shooting. Jen Sullivan has the details.
The booming sound of multiple gunshots captured in this video, terrifying witnesses. Then, authorities rushing to the scene of a reported active shooter near Emory University in Atlanta Friday. Police believe the target was the headquarters of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, where multiple windows were shattered by bullets. One CDC employee says he was sitting in his car when he saw the shooter approach the building.
He raised the rifle sort of at an angle and started firing into CDC's campus.
Then, the employee called 911.
The CDC campus did receive multiple rounds into their buildings.
Authorities say DeKalb County police officer David Rose was killed by the gunman.
He gave his life with a commitment to serve others.
The shooter was found dead inside a CVS store across the street. Police have identified him as Patrick Joseph White. Authorities believe he may have targeted the CDC over personal health concerns that he blamed on the COVID-19 vaccine. The CDC is one of the world's leading health agencies, but it has been forced to make steep cuts during the second Trump administration.
The fact that this may have occurred because of the dangerous lies being spread about vaccines it's an outrage.
This shooting comes days after the Trump administration announced it was canceling $500 million in federal funding for mRNA vaccine research, the same science which helped create the COVID-19 shot. And comes amid a rise in vaccine skepticism due to misinformation. New data from the CDC shows the number of kindergartners getting an exemption for required vaccines has increased since the pandemic, and the vast majority are for non-medical reasons. I'm Jen Sullivan reporting.
We are just getting started here on Coast TV News at 11. An Easter pastor detained, the community grappling, and what comes next.
Well, I hope you're able to get out and enjoy the beautiful weather we're going to be experiencing tomorrow through the start of the week, because we're going to turn the heat up by the middle part of next week. We'll talk more about that here in a few minutes.
And coming up, we have all the top stories from Delmarva this week. We'll be right back. From a razor-thin special election to recreational weed sales, there was a lot going on this week here on the coast. Charlie Sakaitis has a look at our week in review.
Monday, a rift between officers in the town of Lewis. Members of the Lewis bargaining unit announced they have no confidence in the Lewis city manager. The union says the city failed to follow policies when it comes to promotions, saying the way recent promotions were handled, quote, hurt morale and could affect recruiting. Lewis Mayor Amy Marasco says she's confident both sides will work through the issue. Tuesday, Democrat Alana Berry won a razor-thin special election to represent District 20. This was the race to replace Stell Parker Selby. Berry edged out Republican Nikki Miller by just 121 votes. Wednesday, big numbers reported from the first weekend of recreational weed sales in the first state. Over 900,000 in total sales. Dispensaries passed state compliance checks with no issue. Thursday, an update on the pier at Cape Henlopen State Park. The Division of Parks and Recreation has outlined two different options, one for repair, one for replacement, both, though, costing more than what is currently available. The Division of Parks and Rec still looking at different financial options to try to reach a solution. Friday, DelDOT announced the opening of the first ramp and connector road of the North Millsboro bypass. The full bypass currently expected to open to traffic in late September. For your Week in Review, I'm Charlie Sakaitis.
Well, we could see a little fog, especially away from the coast to start tomorrow morning, but plenty of sunshine as you make your way out to brunch. Plenty of sunshine on our way to highs in the upper 70s to the low 80s. I'll talk about how long this beautiful weather is going to stick around coming up right after the break. Well, we are enjoying some picture-perfect weather on Delmarva for a time typically known as the dog days of summer. We are well below average, and we're going to continue to see below average temperatures at least for the next 1 to 2 days before we see the return of 90-degree temperatures. We're at 64 in Salisbury, 62-degree dew point. You can see milder at the coast, 72 in Rehoboth to 71 in Lewis, but we're down to 59 in Harrington. We're now down to 60 in Laurel. So those are the locations that are going to be well into the 50s through the overnight. Dew points right now are in the lower to mid 60s, so still rather comfortable. We're under the influence of high pressure, pretty much parked right over the Delmarva Peninsula, and that's keeping us nice and dry. This front, well off to the west, across portions of Minneapolis and Omaha, that's not going to be here until late in the week. Well, as I mentioned earlier in the newscast, it's been a cool start to August. Each day represents the differential from the actual high temperature, and we are well below average for the first 9 days in Georgetown and in Salisbury. Look at that. That's the coldest start to an August on record, so pretty impressive to say the least as we march on here on the summer season. 55 inland, 66 at the coast, a cool crisp night again with some patchy fog possible. We're up to 81 tomorrow in Milford, 82 in Seaford, 83 Cambridge, a bit milder there along the eastern shore, 82 in Salisbury. So Futurecast shows the clear skies tomorrow. Once again, tomorrow night into early Monday, could see some patchy fog interior, but we're once again down in the mid to upper 50s, and then we'll see mid 80s, I think, by Monday afternoon, and then it just gradually continues to get warmer from there on out, and also muggier, especially by Tuesday and Wednesday. You're going to really feel the humidity as those dew points increase to over 70 degrees. Chincoteague through Assateague, we're going to see mild temperatures. Again, that moderate risk of rip currents tomorrow through Monday, so keep a close eye on that if you're heading either to any of the short points up along the Delmarva coast. 75 in Ocean City on Sunday, 77 into Monday in our warmer beach locations. Lewis, plenty of sunshine to start the week, and we'll bump those temperatures up to 85 on Tuesday. So there's the setup as we go into midweek. High pressure settles to our southwest. We get that return flow of the southwest pulling in that Gulf moisture, and we will see the return of the humidity. Well, this area coming off the Africa coast, that's a tropical wave, and that is going to be a concern that the National Hurricane Center is going to be keeping a close eye on, looking at potentially 60% chance of development over the next 7 days. So keep a close eye on that in the coming weeks. 88 for Tuesday. We're at 92 into Wednesday. As we get into Thursday afternoon, I think that's the best day to see a chance of a thunderstorm, and then we dry out in time for next weekend.
A longtime pastor from Easton was arrested by ICE on July 21st after being accused of overstaying his visa for 24 years. One of Daniel Fuentes Espinal's friends told CoastTV his detention occurred moments after he visited a Lowe's store on his way to work. Fuentes Espinal, a husband and father of 3, is now in a detention facility in Louisiana. Telemundo Delmarva and CoastTV News reporter Ana Sofia Roman shows us how the community is reacting.
Damaris Aguirre, who preferred not to show her face, has been friends with Pastor Daniel Fuentes Espinal for over a decade. She described Pastor Fuentes Espinal as a noble and respectful man.
I think everyone here in Easton who knows him is saddened. The sadness of the fact that he is a good person who doesn't go around hurting anyone, but rather helps others find the right path. It's sad that they focus on people like that.
The afternoon of
Len Foxwell is a former neighbor of Pastor Fuentes Espinal. Foxwell's son, Darren, who recently passed away after a car accident, was a best friend of Pastor Fuentes Espinal's son, Daniel.
His relationship with Daniel, the pastor's son, was such that Daniel was at my son's bedside at Maryland Shock Trauma on the day he was pronounced dead. And Pastor Fuentes Espinal spoke at my son's funeral services on July 2nd. So I mention that only to say that the relationship between our families and my personal commitment to the pastor and to his family runs very, very deep.
Cristal Herrera works at La Selecta, a Hispanic store in the downtown area of Easton. Herrera says Pastor Fuentes Espinal's wife is a frequent client there.
It is something unfortunate that they took him away, especially since he has been good. He is a support for the Easton community.
CoastTV was told Pastor Fuentes Espinal is part of Iglesia del Nazareno Jesús Te Ama in Easton.
The church is very sad about what is happening to them, because it is not easy that overnight the pastor, who is the one in charge of everything there in the church, is not there.
A beloved man in the Easton community, now behind bars. Foxwell told CoastTV News Fuentes Espinal has a bond review hearing scheduled for early next week. They're hoping he can post bond and ultimately be reunited with his family. In Easton, Ana Sofia Roman, CoastTV News.
After the break here on CoastTV News at 11, Land for Peace plan. We'll show you why Ukraine says no to Trump's proposed land deal with Russia. And freezing funds, what the Trump administration is asking from UCLA. That's up next on CoastTV News at 11. The Trump administration wants UCLA to pay a $1 billion settlement, but the school says that number would devastate the university. This marks the latest effort by the White House to shape higher education as the White House freezes research funding and targets schools over alleged anti-Semitism. Overseas, Ukraine President Zelensky is rejecting President Trump's proposal for a land swap with Russia. This comes just days before a planned meeting between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard reports.
President Trump tonight facing headwinds ahead of his planned historic meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, announcing the meeting will take place in Alaska next Friday in suggesting that Ukraine may have to cede some of its land as part of a peace agreement.
There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both. But we'll be talking about that either later or tomorrow or whatever.
But today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky vehemently rejecting the premise, saying we will not reward Russia for what it has done. Ukrainians will not give their land to the occupier. A senior U.S. official telling NBC News that top Ukrainian officials met today with Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and White House Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Keith Kellogg ahead of the Trump-Putin meeting to engage on principles of a potential proposal for a ceasefire, including possible security guarantees. NBC News now learning, according to a senior U.S. official and 3 people briefed on discussions, the White House is considering inviting Zelensky to Alaska. The Ukrainian president asserting that any deal between Trump and Putin will achieve nothing without Ukraine at the table and will be dead decisions that will never work. The president, for a second time this year, had set a deadline for Russia to enter into a ceasefire and effectively bring its war to an end.
10 days from today.
But last night, that deadline came and went without a mention of any consequence. Instead, the president now set to welcome Putin to the American homeland in what will be Putin's first time on U.S. soil in 10 years, despite his Russian military continuing to kill Ukrainians. Overnight, Russia launching dozens of drone attacks in its continued bombardment.
We're taking a live look into Ocean City, and after the break here on Coast TV News at 11, we have a final check on your forecast. Attention dog lovers, a national search is on for the next golden retriever to helm the title role of the new Air Bud movie. Air Bud returns. Now the 15th installment of the franchise is set to hit the theaters next year, but first they need a new star player. Dog owners who think their best friend can be the next Air Bud can sign up at airbud.com/thesearch. Every submission is eligible for a variety of prizes up to the film's release.
Well, a picture-perfect Sunday on Delmarva with mostly sunny skies, upper 70s, low 80s at the coast, and we are in the lower 80s elsewhere. Get your forecast anytime by dialing the First Alert weather phone, and your 10-day forecast shows the sunny, dry weather continuing through the start of the week, but we gradually rise those temperatures and the humidity. You're going to really feel the humidity by Wednesday, 92, and then we'll throw in a few thunderstorm chances as we get into Thursday, but overall, looking relatively dry throughout the next 10 days.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for joining us here for Coast TV News at 11. For more news and local weather, download our Coast TV News app. Saturday Night Live starts right now. Have a great night.